Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby, and welcome to another video. This time, Anarchy of the EU server is going to show us exactly how to play in the E-100. So this is the Tier 10 German behemoth of a tank. It's not quite as big as the Maus, but its gun, loaded with this 150mm, is simply devastating, capable of putting out 750 alpha damage a shot. And Anarchy is going to put this to great effect in this game. Now when we look at this as a matchup for the E-100, it's very favourable. He is one of only 3 Tier 10 tanks on either side. And as the E-100 is a very heavily armoured vehicle, it does do exceedingly well against lower tier tanks. That doesn't mean to say that it can't do well against tier 10 tanks as well. It's just generally tier 10 tanks will have much higher penetration, making it easier to penetrate the E-100. Now when you're engaging this German behemoth, you really want to try and hit it in the lower plate. It's an easy penetrating shot against this tank. And Anarchy there puts in his first shell to the T-54. Unfortunately, it bounces. Now he sees an ISU-152, a Tier 8 tank destroyer with ultra-high penetration, easily capable of going through the E-100's thick armor. Anarchy sees the IS-8 there and slams a 150mm shell right through the side of the tank, devastating it for 809 damage. And that Tier 9 Heavy has been reduced to 29% of his total health, albeit 2 minutes into the game. And shuts him down with the second shell. Now that's one of the lovely things about this 150mm. The 124, or is it 28? I think it's the 128mm that you can also use on this tank. The same gun that's on the Maus and on the previous vehicle, the E-75, is lovely. But 490 alpha damage just isn't the same as the 750 that you can achieve with this 150mm. Now, so far, Anarchy has been only firing regular rounds. Now that is one of the limitations of the E-100. The regular rounds have only got 235mm of penetration. That's barely more than quite a few Tier 8 heavy tanks. And we could hear the sizzle there. The enemy E-100 is not using AP. That sizzle indicates that the E-100, the enemy E-100 that is, fired a heat round at Anarchy here. Anarchy's trying to go for the weak point. It doesn't penetrate. And the enemy E-100 fires in a heat round. Let's just take a look to see where that hit him. Yep, right through the turret ring. Even though Anarchy was angling his turret armor at about 45 degrees, the enemy E-100, with its 334mm of heat penetration, was able to penetrate him. And he fired another one there. Another round right into the tracks of Anarchy. Now Anarchy's going to be fighting fire with fire. So he loads a heat round and is able to go through the cheeks of the enemy E-100. And that time the enemy E-100 again fired at the, what looks to be, let's just take a quick look. You can see all these tiny little heat holes here. Even from 150mm, the heat penetrations are visibly smaller. So that was the one that he put in, which took out his tracks and penetrated his tank. However, the enemy E-100 foolishly fired a heat round into the spaced armor of the E-100. Now, heat does exceedingly badly at penetrating spaced armor, and that's why Anarchy was able to absorb that one and take no damage. One thing that heat also doesn't have is normalization. It has no normalization whatsoever. And so if you fail to hit a flat surface, and you hit an angled surface, it's not going to do as well as an AP round would. So Anarchy manages to take out the T-110E4, and now it's time for his platoon mate. Hello, lower plate. Hello, 639 damage. And unfortunately, this is what the game descends into. The enemy E-100 had already loaded heat for Anarchy. But now, Anarchy is managing to tank well against even the heat ammunition of the enemy E-100 and taking him down. Finishing a successful duel where Anarchy managed to do 2,700 damage to that enemy E-100. It was a complete one-on-one fight. Now, I do admit that the premium rounds are fairly brutal, really, with the E-100. It's hard to believe that you would get an extra 50% penetration, nearly, just under 50%. Now, while the AP rounds can still be very successful, they're really not competitive against heavily armored tier 9 and 10 tanks. But now Anarchy's going back to the AP. And it was the right choice there to be using heat against the enemy E-100. He bounced the first 2 AP shells. And if he'd continued to try and honorably use only the AP shells, it's likely that he wouldn't have been able to do 2,700 damage to the enemy E-100 and come out with his life still intact. He spots a T-28 prototype, puts a good shot into his turret. Now he's angling his armor well. He absorbs a shot from a Ferdinand and a Waffenträger auf Panzer IV. But Anarchy really needs to be thinking about the fact that there are 2 very dangerous American artillery. And there's one of them. Huge, huge, huge caliber guns on those artillery. That T-92 and the M53-55 are capable of one-shotting Anarchy if they manage to hit him flush. Even splashing nearby manages to take both of his tracks off and deal 100 damage. Now it'd be interesting to know, Anarchy, if you watch this video back, please do let me know if you were using a spall liner, a super heavy spall liner in your E-100. Be nice to know, if you were, to absorb some of the damage from that artillery or not. Anarchy is doing some really good work here. Not only is he weathering the storm from 2 artillery, he's keeping a Waffenträger auf Panzer IV in place after successfully killing the Ferdinand and maiming the T-28 prototype. Now the Waffenträger seems to be more cautious. He wants to flank around, but luckily there was a T-32 that was holding the flank. And I just missed the kill there on the T-28 prototype, but that was a great shot in. I was highlighting the fact that there was a T-32 to the south that was preventing the Waffenträger from flanking. However, the T-32 was just killed by the Waffenträger. And so Anarchy really needs to be afraid of that Waffenträger auf Panzer IV, who is also using 150mm. He's basically got the same gun that Anarchy does. And taking one big hit from that 150mm will really put the pressure on him. Now Anarchy is already up to 9,500 damage. That's simply incredible in an E-100. Fantastic round for him so far. And he is rocking and rolling. So the enemy artillery hits him flush there. Looks like he landed probably right there into the side of the tracks. It's most likely where it would have been, as it only did 400 damage to him. Anarchy really outplayed that Waffenträger auf Panzer IV. Look at that. Shell lands about 4 or 5 meters away, but because it is the T-92, shaves off another 300 health, leaving Anarchy down to 300 hit points. Now, Anarchy managed to outplay that Waffenträger auf Panzer IV there. He saw that he wasn't aiming at him. The Waffenträger probably wanted to just try and kite Anarchy and use his artillery as fire support. Anarchy was having none of that. Saw that he had the opportunity. He came round, Put a lovely shell into him. And now he's got the T-69. Another lovely clutch shot there. And trying to avoid fire from where the T-32 could be, or an artillery shell. So Anarchy was 1 versus 4. Now he's 1 versus 3, and he's spotted the T-30. Thank goodness the T-30 only has 521 hit points, 20 hit points, meaning that if Anarchy manages to penetrate him, he will die. So now up to 10,600 damage. Now I like what Anarchy did there. He made it look like he was reversing down the alleyway, and as soon as he got unspotted, he stopped. Now he's just hoping that the T-30 will make a mistake and come out. But this T-30 is no slouch. He's played 13,000 games. He's got a very respectable win rate of 55%. Which means there's all that more pressure on Anarchy. Now, if I was Anarchy in this situation, I'd be very worried about a T-92 or an M53 rushing me. But holy crap! Anarchy just managed to shut down that T-30 there. What a brilliant result. The T-30 is going, what? In the chat. I really don't think he expected that. And yes, just looking at where the T-30 was facing, he was obviously predicting that Anarchy would try and flank around and go in from behind. However, that really wasn't where Anarchy was going. Nice try there by the T-30. But he just fed Anarchy the Radley Walters medal. He's up to 8 now, having done 11,100 damage. He's got to watch out. There is still 2 artillery left in this game. And all they have to do is land anywhere near or on his tank, and he'll be dead. Now, where will they be coming from? If the enemy artillery were to work together and to come from either side, really there's nothing that Anarchy could do. Or alternatively, if they were to come together, as long as when one of them takes the initial hit, the reload on Anarchy is so long that the other one should be able to splash him. Oh my god, he's been ambushed. He's got stuck on the back of a tank. Oh god! Oh my word, that was a thin shot. The luck of the gods. Anarchy doesn't even fully aim and skims a shot over a dead tank into the cupola of that tier 9 artillery. And thankfully for Anarchy, the T-92 was pre-aimed, and obviously he didn't have a clean shot. The T-92 must have been saying, okay, M53, you go scout, and I'll pre-aim for you. Oh, and this is where you want to be. E-100 versus a T-92. Come at me, bro. No, you come at me, bro. Now, Anarchy's doing the right thing here. He's going far enough back around the corner to stop the T-92 from splashing him. Because in theory, if the T-92 hits even the ground around Anarchy's tank, it should still be enough to take him out. Anarchy's doing the right thing here. He's got pressure on the cap, which means that the artillery does have to interrupt him. Now Anarchy's aiming down a tiny little hole there to shoot through the pillars, so to say. You could cut the tension with the knife. I can't imagine what Anarchy was thinking right now, being on 9 kills, single-handedly carrying this game, 11,500 damage, and probably the most scary artillery on the enemy team. Still, I think I'd rather be against a T-92 than a Bat Chat with an autoloader. That would be pretty awful as well. And there's the T-92 trying to sneak in behind. Oh, it just misses! Anarchy goes back out and dogs the shell into the wall. Oh god, the server lag just trolled him so bad. Oh no. Oh no, it's too much. And now Anarchy's got a decision. I don't think he can actually cap in time, so he's got to go and hunt the artillery. So he's off. He's going to find the T-92. He's coming just round the corner. Where is he? Oh, and this is dodgy as hell. Where's the T-92 ambush shot? There he is! Headshot! Yes! The T92 justice is done. What a result. 12,000 damage, 10 kills, and finishing off the most dangerous artillery that there is in the game in an E-100. What a fantastic result for you, Anarchy. This was an absolute behemoth round to match the kind of caliber the E-100 has. There's an absolute graveyard around this church on the Lakeville map. I was really impressed as to how you held your nerve in that tense situation, especially when you were behind the buildings just over here and not really panicking and trying to make a dash towards one of the 3 tank destroyers that had you locked down, or even the 2 artillery. Thank you so much for this replay. It was completely awesome, and it was an absolute pleasure for me to watch. So let's just take a quick look at the post-game stats. So this game was from the 20th of June. It's still very fresh, and this was 38,000 WN8. One of the greatest replays of all time that I have seen. Anarchy managed to net nearly 150,000 credits, even without the bonus event that was going on, which would have given him a clean profit of 75,000 even without that event bonus. This was a 2,448 experience game, which is 1,632 base in an E-100. That's simply huge. Anarchy managed to pick up the Pools medal with that final kill, a De Langlades medal, which is a rather unusual one for destroying at least 4 enemy vehicles while they're inside the cap circle, and the high caliber and the steel wall. Securing 12,000 damage in this game was more than the rest of his team put together. I think Anarchy really did have the luck of the gods here. He quite often didn't fully aim his shots, yet he hit 22 out of 23, and of those, 19 penetrated. Now, of the 15 hits that Anarchy received, only 7 penetrated due to the thick nature of the E-100 armor, blocking nearly 6,000 damage. So Anarchy, thank you so much for submitting this replay. It was an absolute joy to watch. Hopefully all of you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider rating it down below. It really helped me out. And let me know in the comments what you think about the E-100. Do you think it's really outdated? Or do you think there's probably not another tank in the game that could have done what Anarchy was able to achieve with it here? Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.